This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast, proudly in association, as always, with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. This episode, as you can see, we are 66% British, 33% Irish, but as always, 100% Giants. God, Kev, a 3-week hiatus, and then 2 pods in 3 days. It's a little bit of a step change. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. I mean, but like, it's what the pod calls for. I mean, it's that time of year. It's free agency. There's so much to talk about, so much going on. We couldn't. I know we said we'd do 1 pod in the off season per week, but with everything going on at the moment, it just felt right to be able to get on twice this week and really hash out some of the free agent stuff.
Yeah, and how ironic that we spent the entirety of the hour and a half ad-libbing 90% of last week's Monday's episode for it to take about 45 minutes for the Giants to sign another player, and then it kind of snowballed from there. As you can see, we have another member of the UK and Ireland Giants community with us tonight. We are joined by Aaron, also known as Mayo, for anybody who is in the comments of our YouTube shows. Obviously, someone who was on the pre-season interview series with myself as well. He is making his full pod debut. Aaron, just give us a bit of a background on yourself and then also the Giants as well.
Yeah, evening, gents. Thanks for having me on. I fell in love with the Giants about 20 years ago, well before we had regular coverage of them. Watching them go to the Super Bowl and unfortunately lose to the Ravens is my first memory of being a Giants fan. Not being allowed to stay up and watch the Super Bowl, I was too young at the time, but finding out the next morning that we didn't score a single point was devastating. So, yeah, ever since then, been to every European game. Obviously, got to meet you guys in person in Munich, which was a great weekend if you ignore the game. But yeah, other than that, I've played American football for Bristol Apache for the last 12 years, and absolutely love the game. So big in the fantasy. So not just the Giants frenzy, but the free agent frenzy, but trying to work out, can I get Garrett Wilson a bit cheaper because they think Justin Fields is not going to throw to him, and people don't realise that DJ Moore had his best receiving season with Justin Fields. So trying to get Garrett Wilson on the cheap, there's a tip for you.
It's definite dedication when you're looking at free agency frenzy from a fantasy football point of view already. That's definitely something that's going to be coming up real soon, isn't it? So before we begin, obviously we'll do our usual. So if you're watching on YouTube, on X or on Twitch, do get involved in the comments as you always do, and we love you for it. Like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the notification bell, tell a friend, pet your dog, all those lovely things. So I'm going to start off not with free agency news and just on a bit of a curveball here, and we're going to throw it up and we're going to talk about Evan Neal for a little bit and talk about Evan Neal moving to guard because, as Aaron has already said, he played offensive line. So I thought it was a really good conversation starter before we get into it. So there we go. 7th pick in the 2022 draft. Has obviously struggled as a tackle. He's had injury problems. He made the burger flipping comments, which went down like a lead balloon, as you would imagine they would do in a volatile market like New York. And now we're talking about the team reportedly looking at moving him to guard during camp. So, Aaron, I guess we start with you here. What's that going to kind of pertain to, moving from tackle to guard, and how different might that be for Neal?
Yeah, so I think best place to start with Neil is he was a number 7 pick. He was a consensus top 5 pick out of Alabama, greatest competition that a lineman can face, the defensive line in the SEC. And some, there isn't, I did have a look today to have a look at his scouting reports, and there isn't a single person that didn't think he was a top 10 pick out there, right? So why has he failed at tackle? And we can all agree he's failed at tackle miserably. I think the PFF had him at something like 73 out of 141 qualifying tackles in pass blocking, right? And he's not blocking on the blind side; he's blocking on the side, where the quarterback gives you a little bit of help because you can see the rusher coming as well. So the negatives that were there around him was because of his size, he cheats a little bit with his footwork. And the key about tackle is you have to move in space. I've not the biggest guy on the team. I've managed to play all 5 positions on the line across my career, including one season where I would rotate one series at tackle, one series at guard, and one series off, just so we all had playing time in the team. And the reason why I'm able to do it is my balance is really, really good. And that's what you see on tape from Evan Neal, is his balance isn't always there. And that's because he tends to cheat with because he's got like a 97th percentile wingspan. His arms aren't particularly long. They're like 34 inches, something like that. But his wingspan, so his body is wide, and his wingspan is like 97th percentile for tackles in the league. So he should be good. But what he is tending to do is lean and get off balance. And once he engages, he's not moving his feet and staying in front, because these edge rushers in the NFL, they'll run over you, they'll run round you. You can't get away with like you can coming out of SEC and Alabama, and you're the best team. Your defense is the best opponent you're going to see all year if you're an Alabama offensive lineman, at least when he came out of the draft. So one way of fixing that is moving inside to guard, and that's why you'll see in the draft lots of high quality tackle prospects play tackle at college, being said, oh, these are going to be a guard in the NFL, and the reason being sometimes it's short arms, right? Because again, short arms means you can't lever. The guy can bat your arms away before you can get your hands on them, and sometimes it's you'll see like they're a knee bender or a waist bender. Well, knee benders are the guys that can get in front of guys, keep their body low and get into position and not turn and twist and keep their shoulders level with the line of scrimmage, so they can use all of their power. When you kick into guard, the amount of area you need to cover is a lot smaller, right? And there's often a lot of times you're working on a double team, or you're uncovered as a guard and you're looking for a blitzer to pick up. As an edge defender, as an edge rusher, you may have a tight end helping you on a pass play, but you've got to cover that edge rusher who can go round the outside or cut back inside, and you're on your own. You're on an island. So moving into guard, this is where we saw Mekhi Becton have some success with the team in green that I don't relate very much. He kicked into guard and looks phenomenal as a guard prospect because, again, Evan Neal is a top run blocker, 9th out of 141 in tackles, right? So you get all of that benefit as a run blocker in guard. You can still use his athleticism. You can do those double teams. You can pull the guards. You can get the best out of Evan Neal at guard in the run game. And that right side of the line has traditionally been always in the power side, where you'd run behind the right and your pass protection would be better on the left. So right guard, where we've got this problem and we want to improve, or where we've targeted as an area that look through Twitter today and they're like, I want a quarterback and I want a right guard. Well, I think the right guard is already on the roster. I think Evan Neal is the guy that can play right guard. He's got the pedigree, but it's whether or not he's got the mentality to play the guard. Because the one thing that you have to do at guard is you have to work out, who am I blocking on this play? Because at tackle, it's nearly always the guy on the edge, unless you've got a shunt on the inside. You've got a two-way go at guard. Am I going right? Am I going left? What's the center called? What's the defense doing? Pre-snap, all that movement is designed to freeze the guard's feet to make them slow off the snap. And that's where is his mentality there? And that's what questions, is he tough enough? Does he have the mentality? Does he want to fight for his roster position? Because he isn't getting the 50-year option. I certainly wouldn't give it to him anyway. But what you can do, we've seen some guards get some real big paydays. Will Fries, who the Giants went in for, the big payday he's got at guard, he can still earn a lot of money in this league as a top guard. Does he want it? This is the summer and the season for him to find out.
So just a quick one, Mayo. So it completely makes sense what you're saying about moving into guard. Obviously, with there's balance issues, you're saying that those will be sort of not nullified but you think they'll be reduced, having him move over less space. And to be honest, I'd love to see him as a pulling guard, just to see him on some of those pulls or runs and stuff like that. Just two quick questions. And first of all, you alluded to it anyway. Do you think he will be a success at guard? And secondly, why do you think the front office and coaching staff have taken so long to actually make that move? Now he's in his final year.
So the first one is he's got all the tangibles to make it successful at guard, and think of it like taking down your combat arena from an octagon or a boxing ring and down to a phone booth, right? So the guy that he's going to be hitting is not going to be very far away from where he's starting to line up from. And generally, the guys in the middle are bigger, heavier, slower. And I don't think strength is necessarily a problem for him.
Agreed.
What you can hide at guard is kind of movement issues. If a guy isn't tough enough and strong enough to play tackle, they're not going to be tough enough and strong enough to play in at guard. So that's where, if it's strength is the issue, which I don't believe it is, that's where he'll still struggle at guard. But if it's movement based, and what we see on tape is him bending at the waist and leaning over and getting off balance, and that's when he's getting caught out, should be successful at guard. The issue about him moving was he wasn't particularly athletic for a tackle. So he had some really good intangibles about body size and space, but his 40-yard time, his sort of 3-cone, that kind of stuff, was only average for tackle, probably slightly above average for guard. So maybe he can do the pull-in stuff. Maybe we just don't need him to. Maybe we can just have him, like we've seen with Mekhi Becton, if he's uncovered, get his hands straight onto that linebacker, and he's going to win that battle every time.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with that. You saw him just get beat with speed on the outside because his footwork just wasn't quick enough. And like you said, he lost balance just far, far too often. So do you think then that a move to guard is the best thing? And do you think he can actually be a starting guard in this league?
It's the only thing he's got in as a Giant, right? Because there is no way you can go out and put him again at tackle. The free agent signings that we've made show you that he's not being considered as a swing tackle, as a backup tackle. He started as a left guard at Alabama before moving to right tackle as a sophomore and finishing up as a left tackle. The one thing about his freshman year at guard was run blocking amazing. So the guy that wants him to be a guard is going to be Tyrone Tracy. He's going to love having to run behind and maybe another running back that we pick up in the draft. It's a really good draft for running backs. So that's where we're going to see his success. Pass protection at right guard is quite often you're uncovered, you're picking up a blitz, you're helping with the center of how many times do we see Dexter Lawrence getting double teamed? And that's center and guard working together to, so again, John Michael Schmitz might like having Evan Neal next to him. One of the reasons why maybe he didn't want to play guard, there is traditionally guards make a hell of a lot less money than tackles. So if he can make it at work at tackle, and his career, he's likely to make more money as a backup tackle than a mid-range starter at guard, right? Because if he's an all-pro guard like a Quentin Nelson or some of the best guards in the league, yeah, you can make nearly good average starting tackle money. And we've seen it again. We've seen in this free agency money for good quality guards. They're not good quality linemen. Full stop are hard to find. The only way a lot of teams, we saw 3 or 4 linemen get signed on the deadline before they became free agents because teams were like, yeah, we can't let this guy go. Can't find a replacement that easily. We've got to re-sign this guy. So if you're the best news for the Giants is we may have our answer at right guard, and we might be able to retain him on a good value contract for the team if he's successful. And we want to extend him at the end of this season, not on a 5th-year option.
Right. So I need a soundbite. I need something I can clip. I need to get you on record. Is Evan Neal going to be our starting guard this season? And is he going to get a second contract in New York?
So I believe game 1, whoever our opponent will be, Evan Neal will be the change at right guard. It'll be the only change on our offensive line from the end of last season to the beginning of this season will be Evan Neal at right guard, and he will not get a second contract in New York.
That was very much a roller coaster there of the slow build and then just straight down there. Yeah. But no, that was brilliant, Aaron. Absolutely brilliant. One of the reasons that I kind of reached out to you, and obviously you made the comment on Monday about the starting right guard is in the building, so it was only right to get you on to kind of say why. And it looked, people are saying, fantastic insight on the technical side of playing at it, which is obviously something that none of us four can really give. Because, I mean, Kev, you played tight end a few years ago now, probably. Myself, I've never played. Dan's never played. Neither Shane. So it's nice to get sort of like a bit of more of an insight there. But I guess we should probably talk about some new players now. Some changes, shall we say? But we'll start off with the returning faces. I am going to omit one returning face here, which is Darius Slayton, because I think there's a much bigger conversation that needs to happen with him rather than just kind of brushing him aside. Not that we're brushing these guys aside, but you know what I'm saying. So Monday's episode, we had the start of legal tampering. We went through all the signings and re-signings, and then, like I said, mere hours after that, the Giants decided to double, if not triple, the amount of players that me and Kev got to speak about with Chris on Monday. So just to remind the people who didn't tune into that show, by the end of the episode, we'd spoken about Tommy DeVito, Casey Kreiter, Timon Fox, Chris Manhertz and Jamie Gillan. And then we also broke down the instant reaction of Paulson Adebo and Roy Robertson-Harris. Now, since then, we have re-signed Darius Slayton, but like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit. We've also re-signed Deontay Johnson, the linebacker, who had a good preseason and a really good Week 18 showing, but was injured in between that. We've re-signed Greg Van Roten, who was our de facto Swiss Army knife last year, who played centre when JMS was down, but also mucked in at guard when we realised that we had issues around there. And my boy, Emir Smith-Marset, the man who has gone from catching bouncing punts and being screamed at live in person by me in Munich to being somebody who I own a T-shirt of for betting purposes.
Bordering on cult status now.
He is.
Cult hero.
He is. And then we have some new signings to talk about. We've got Javon Holland, Chauncey Golston, Stone Forsyth, James Hudson, Chris Board as well. And I'm sure we'll probably get more as the days roll by. You'll notice that we still don't have a QB. That's because the darkness retreating, loving Aaron Rodgers is stringing everyone along and has failed to make a decision on his next team. Russell Wilson is scheduled to have a visit with the Giants tomorrow because he has left the Browns building earlier today. So hopefully by next week, we'll have something there. But we're going to talk a little bit more about Rodgers and Wilson to close out this episode. But for now, Aaron, I'll start with you because we had the signings of Paulson Adebo and Roy Robertson-Harris come through on Monday. Roy Robertson-Harris, probably not a sexy move, but Paulson Adebo definitely is. So what are your sort of initial thoughts there?
Yeah, well, clearly we had, what was it, the 30th ranked defense, and we've gone in and spent the money on defense that we need to hopefully bring us up to at least the middle of the pack, right? We know we have those guys up front that are up there as one of the best D lines in the league, but teams know that they just have to protect for a few seconds and someone's open, because our secondary wasn't playing at the level that we needed to do. So yeah, we all knew corner was our number one, need on the defense. We brought one in, one of the, a guy that's got competition, like all written all over him. The amount of batted balls he's got. He's a guy that competes. He's not just a guy that cover in space, whatever. He's a guy that obviously loves that battle. Great guy to bring in on that defense. So yeah, really happy with what was day one of the free agent frenzy.
Yeah, it was slow, but I think that the Paulson Adebo signing kind of made up for that, because it was such an area of need that we needed. We'd all said CB1 was the top priority, almost above quarterback, because we've got the draft and we've got options there, hopefully, depending on what happens around there. But Kev, Deontay Johnson, Greg Van Roten, Emir Smith-Marset, we're all fans of these signings. I think all three of those players we would have happily earmarked as being back at the beginning of free agency if we had to choose people from to return from last season. Which of those do you think is the biggest signing out of those three?
I think Greg Van Roten is kind of an obvious one, in the sense that he was a starting guard last year and he played to that level. He wasn't like a top level guard, but he definitely played to that level. He also covered out at center as well when needed, when JMS went out for a couple of games. So bringing that is such a shrewd move. He come in, a good locker room guy, knows Priscillo, played well. Do we want him to be our starting guard going forward this year? Preferably not, but whoever comes in, he can definitely be a good deputy, and he can cover all those three interior lines. So if one of them goes down and Greg Van Roten is your backup, that you're going to get good play out of someone when they come in. So he would be my obvious, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about the linebacker Johnson. I mean, we all loved him last year. We thought he could actually get sort of starting reps. He was playing that way in preseason and then in the off season. And obviously had that injury. It was so unlucky. So I think someone like that can really come in, and he's still young. He could come in and actually sort of like push the starting linebackers for time. We would like to see to add to the linebacker room, yes, but I think a healthy season for him would be fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, obviously Smith-Marset returning as well. There's the personal tie to that. I think it's unlikely that we'll see Gunnar Olszewski back now. I think if he was to come back, it would have happened at the same time. So I think that we're probably moving on from there, and we're looking at Emir as being our sole returner, shall we say. We've still got Eric Gray. I'm pretty sure Eric Gray's still under contract, isn't he, somehow? He's potentially there as a punt returner. I did see earlier that I probably don't want to use him there because we're paying him a hell of a lot of money to do other things. But Javon Holland, who we're going to talk about in a minute, he's done punt returning before. But I think we've all been burnt by the Adoree Jackson issues from a couple of seasons ago. Let's have a chat then about Javon Holland. The biggest signing, arguably, since we were last on air. Former Dolphins star safety signed a 3-year contract with the Giants worth up to $45.3 million, with $30.3 million guaranteed. The actual full contract numbers for this one haven't come out yet. I still haven't seen them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much of that is a signing bonus, how much we're paying this year. If there's an out, there normally always is with a contract around 3 years. So that's going to be interesting. And the 25-year-old, in my opinion, is an instant upgrade on last year's starting safety, Jason Pinnock, who obviously went to the 49ers in free agency. And I think that it kind of shows Joe Schoen's willingness to admit mistakes and to right the wrongs after letting McKinney go and seeing the secondary regress. Now, it's interesting, though, because, and I personally, I don't like the way that this is being spun, because I think it's remiss for both Holland and for McKinney. But obviously, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's fine because we've got rid of McKinney and we've got a third-round comp pick and we've got Javon Holland. And I get it, yeah, technically, but let's not spin it that way, because we didn't trade McKinney. We let McKinney walk. I think by trying to spin it that way, you kind of give us a little bit of extra credit. And it's kind of credit maybe we don't deserve because we let him walk. But I've got to say that, you know, Holland is definitely a return to hopefully to that kind of level. Now, Holland's college career was spent solely with the Oregon Ducks, and interestingly, 2 of his 3 years were with edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux, who it sounds like was a big proponent of getting Javon Holland to sign and was there doing his selling, his hard sell. Now, as a freshman, he immediately stood out, recording 44 tackles, 11 pass breakups, 5 interceptions. Didn't slow down in 2019 as a sophomore. He recorded 66 tackles, 8 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, including 1 pick six. He was due to play for a third season for the Ducks in 2020, but opted out because obviously there was the COVID pandemic and every player had the option to opt out for the season, and then declared for the 2021 draft. He was drafted in the second round, pick 36 by the Dolphins, and it didn't take him long to become a starter. He appeared in 14 games that season, recording 69 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 10 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions, and earned himself a place on the Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie team. The following years, he'd established himself as an impact player for the Dolphins, finishing 4 years having played 60 games, starting 57 of them. His stats read at 301 total tackles, 5 sacks, 5 interceptions, 25 pass breakups, 5 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Kev, Holland was high on all of our wish lists, and I went back and I was the one who brought him up first on the 28th of January as my preferred choice at safety for the Giants. Did you ever think that he was a viable option for us, though?
No, absolutely not. Like, not even close, not even in the same stratosphere. And I'll tell you a few reasons why. One, he's an excellent player. Like, he's a fantastic player. I loved him in college. I think I had him like second safety in college, first round talent. You know, I've kind of followed his career a little bit in Miami because one of his mates, Jimmy's a Miami fan. He loved him, and we talk about him quite a lot. And he's just like a great player. I was so surprised when they let him test free agency. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And even when they were going to test free agency, I thought he was going to get 20 mil plus per year, because he's one of the gems or jewels of free agency. He's one of the players like that don't tend to get away, kind of like a McKinney last year. And again, to speak about McKinney quickly, well, we wouldn't pay was it 16.7 for McKinney last year per year. So the thoughts of, oh, well, we'd need to spend 20 plus to get Holland in. Well, that's definitely not going to happen. I thought, Shane's going to go for, he's going to go for a rookie in Newbin, and he's going to pair him up with a 5 to 10 million per year range type, sort of like very middle of the road other safety. Whether he's admitting a mistake or not, I'm not 100% sure. I can definitely see that, whatever mistakes he did make last year, you can't sort of repeat them. And again, I don't like that being brought up of like, okay, why you doing it this year? You should have done it last year. I'm so over last year, and I'm so over this past season as well. I just want to see my GM make the right kind of moves now going forward, and bringing in a 25-year-old top Pro Bowl level safety to pair with Newbin, I think is a fantastic bit of business. And to get him at 15 per, I was just like a little bit floored. I mean, like, obviously he had a bit of a down season last year with he was, got injured at the end of the 2023 season. So, that sort of like these type of injuries, they take a little bit longer to get back from. But going back to your original question, he was never really on my radar. I was looking at those middle of the pack sort of like safeties that you get on the second, third wave of free agency. But to get someone of Holland's ability to come in and seeing some of the comments he's made as well, watching his interview with Cam Wolf of NFL Network, and just sort of seeing what type of guy he is. I mean, sign me up. These are the type of players that you're lucky to get, and I think it's an absolute fantastic move for us.
Aaron, 2024 is probably his worst year career-wise. If you look at his stats, I mean, 62 tackles as a career low, no interceptions. Do you kind of attribute that to the Dolphins as a whole being a bit ropey, rather than it being a slight on him?
Yeah, so I think Kev alludes to the Breaking House Rules podcast that he has with Camel from the network. He says on there he had 3 different defensive coordinators in the 4 years he spent in Miami. Different schemes, different systems. He is a free safety, that ball hawk center fielder type safety, which we really want. Obviously, X went into Green Bay and showed that he could do that there. And if we knew he was an all-pro, which he'd never quite shown in the Giants scheme, then maybe we would have paid the $16 million to keep him. But nevertheless, we decided that was somewhere we could save some money last year. So there's enough of his tape over the 4 years. He is a fantastic young 25-year-old. So he'll be 28 at the end of this contract. There's more than possible to extend him out at the end of this contract or during the contract. Ball hawking safety that allows Nubin to be that box safety, which we missed with Pinnock and Nubin last year. It wasn't quite. Neither of them wanted to do that center field role. Maybe where Banks was coming from, because he didn't have confidence that the guy was going to be behind him. And maybe we'll see a better Tay Banks this season with a true ball hawking safety behind him. But yes, he comes straight in. Some of the attitude, he was surprised himself that he wasn't the first safety off the board as a free agent. He raised that, but as soon as the Giants came knocking, he was told his agent, "That's what. Yes, I want to go." His mum's and his grandmother grew up in Harlem. His girlfriend's family all live in New York, New Jersey area now. So for him, obviously Oregon's cold at times so he's not like a Miami boy. He's had his fun in the sun. Now he's coming back to the cold climate, and everyone knows defenses hit a little bit harder when it's cold. And that safety screaming across the field when you're making a catch in November and December in MetLife. Do you want to hit him, and do you really want to hold on to that ball, or are you going to let this guy take it from you?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that quickly as well. I mean, I think Nubin and Holland can be one of the best split safety tandems in the league. I think both of them can play free safety, both can play strong safety, and that confuses offensive coordinators and quarterbacks. If you looks like you got Nubin in the box one play, looks like you got Holland in the box one play. I mean, both of them are just really, really good players. And what are they, 23 and 25? I mean, you got asked the question earlier about, this it's a very young defense, a lot of good players. Can they grow together? And he said, definitely. And that's what I think. One thing I love. It's a bigger topic to talk about, but the defense is so young, and these guys can grow together. I mean, we got the next 3 seasons guaranteed of Holland and Nubin on very, very affordable contracts. That's fantastic. And then you put Paulson and Banks out there with Phillips in the slot. I mean, that secondary looks so different. It looks exciting, and they're all young players. It's just a great ad, and it's just we said at the beginning of free agency, she has made some mistakes. I've actually quite liked on the face of the moves when they've happened, I've liked them. Some haven't turned out. Darren Waller trade is a prime example of that. But we came into this free agency, it's okay, we can't shop hungry. You know what I mean? We have to go out there and make solid plays. And look at his contract. His contract's fantastic. Paulson's especially. It starts off low, goes high, and then goes low again. So many GMs could push that in the future, push that cap in the future and let it be someone else's problem and try and get in as many players right now. He's got a real team-friendly cap. Bringing Holland in, and he's a leader. When you hear him talk, he speaks so well. And that defensive back room has two real leaders now in free agency. And I just think it's just a really smart move, and it really is a move that shows that we want to go in the right direction.
Yeah, and PFF had Holland as their number 3 agent for the whole free agent class, not at the position, the whole free agent class. Number 1 was T. Higgins, was franchise tagged. Number 2 was Trey Smith, who was also franchise tagged. So really, he was the number 1 free agent, and yeah, Joe Shane landed him. And you say maybe the McKinney was maybe he's learned and read, actually paying a safety is worth it. And isn't that what you want? If you criticize a GM for a bad decision, them go on and make a better decision, learn from their mistakes. You don't want to keep them doing the same mistake over and over again. And you know, we have a rookie GM when he came to the Giants. Maybe we should expect them to make some mistakes, but what we should see is progress.
That's a great point. And I have said in the past, like, is it a case of we want an experienced GM in? If you get rid of Shane, you want an experienced GM in. Do we let Shane have that experience? And last season, I think, was a massive learning curve for him and Thibodeaux. So, you know, can we see better? You know, can they learn from the mistakes? And it kind of looks like they have. And one thing I'll say about McKinney as well, you know, the ATV accident, you know, wasn't good, you know, and there were some rumblings that he fell out with people in the background as well. And so maybe it wasn't the money. Maybe it was just like, you know, we want to get different type of guys in. But I will say one thing as well. Holland said he reached out to X about the organization, and he had nothing but glowing reports to say. To be fair, that's so good. Like, it shows a lot of X's character there for him to sort of help get this move over the line.
I think there's a lot of people out there who are still very critical of Joe Shane. There's a lot of people who are moaning about the right guard situation, about the there are certain words I've seen on X. I'm not going to say them. But, I mean, we don't mind being a little X-rated on here, but I've seen some shocking stuff on X around Joe Shane's continued pursuit of potentially Aaron Rodgers. But if you look at some of the things that he has done, like last season, we saw it in Hard Knocks, and you know, in hindsight, Hard Knocks was probably one of the worst things that could have happened to the Giants last year. But you saw it there where he was saying, you know, cornerback was such a big need for us. And at one point he was like, oh, I'm going to have to play cornerback. And then you see that we get rid of X and you know, the safety is a glaring hole. Pinnock doesn't play up to what we expect Pinnock to do, because he was very good as a number 2 next to X. Very, very good, but just not good enough to be that number 1. So he switches it around and he goes, right, my 2 biggest mistakes of last year, cornerback, right, first person I'm going to sign is our new cornerback 1, and I'm not going to scrimp on him either. And 2 is the safety. But there's just, you know, just a couple of other things. Kev, you were saying about the age of the secondary. I put out a tweet pretty much just after we'd signed Holland, looking at the ages for when we actually start this season. Holland's 25, Nubin 24, Thibodeaux 26, Banks 24, Phillips 23. That's ridiculous as a secondary. So if they do gel very quickly, like you said, 3 years down the line, Holland 28, Nubin 27, Thibodeaux 29, Banks 27, Phillips 26. You've probably still got another few years if it all works out. Whether you'd afford all 5 of them and be able to afford all 5 of them if they ball out, different question. But it just shows that we're not just getting players in for the sake of now. We're getting players in and looking towards the future.
It kind of like, you're exactly right. And it's the quote that Shane has always said, isn't it? You know, you're building for the future, but you want to win now. And these are exactly those type of moves. Because if that starting secondary, if they play the way they have shown to play, then it's phenomenal. And they're some of them aren't even near their prime, and some are just hitting their prime now. So can you imagine what's going to be like in 2 years' time? Like, I'm so excited for it. It's just, you know, it is something for us to. Everyone wants the big flashy QB. I get that. We will talk about that later on. But like this pass defensive secondary, I mean, just looks very good.
I know we didn't have many wins last season, and I've forgotten what a win feels like, but I feel like we have had some kind of win with the way our secondary has improved in this free agency. So I'm claiming that one.
We'll take it as the first of the season for sure. And just quickly before we move on, breaking house rules. So breaking without the G, breaking house rules is the podcast, which is Javon Holland. I've forgotten his name, Cameron Wolfe, and I think a Dolphins fan is also on there, who is talking about how much he's going to miss him, especially their games of golf, apparently. Breaking news. Former Giants cornerback Adoree Jackson is signing with the Eagles.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
My God.
So they've decided Bradbury's not enough, and they've now gone for Jackson. I've literally... Jordan Schultz has just DM'd that across to us. Not affiliated with Jordan Schultz or Starbucks in any way. However, we would like to see more boxing matches in Starbucks.
There you go.
Right, let's move on to probably my favourite name out of all of our... Actually, no, it's one of my two favourite names, because Stone Forsyth, who we'll talk about in a bit, is a cracking name as well. Chauncey Golston, come on, that's a belter, that is. He has signed from the Cowboys on a 3-year deal worth up to $19.5 million. Golston spent his time in college at Iowa, played 2 of his 4 years as a starter. Across his time with the Hawkeyes, he recorded 129 tackles, 12 sacks, 3 interceptions, 7 pass deflections, 3 fumble recoveries, and a forced fumble. He was drafted in the 3rd round of the 2021 draft by the Cowboys and has played in 64 games, starting 16 of them. He's coming off a career best year, which had him record 56 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, and an interception in 13 starts. It's always a good thing when you see an ex-teammate tweet out in frustration, and we saw that with Micah Parsons, who was obviously pretty pissed off that Golston had gone. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to read out a quote from Golston today, and I think it's my favourite quote from any of the new signings so far. He said, "It's a mindset. You get a chance to go in and move a man against his own will. You got to do that. It's a mental thing. And also, you can't go to jail for it out there."
Yeah, and that's what I said when I saw it he'd signed for us, and the thing that this guy makes me think of is violence, is the first word to come from him. And again, I spent most of my career playing offensive line. I did start out as a defensive lineman my very first season. But the one thing that's common across all the defensive line faces is usually they're the first ones running towards any kind of fight, right? They are the real best ones. They are the guys that are violent. And maybe it's something that we've been missing. You know, I think Dex has a switch. He's very happy, smiley off the field. I think Dex has got it on the field. But, yeah, there's some games where we think, where's the fight, guys? This guy's a guy that's going to bring it, right? He is a guy that is here to fight. I did see him in his interview getting confused between us, them, we, us, between when he came to play for Dallas against the Giants, and he was a bit confused about us and we. So hopefully we can get him aimed up against the right color jersey, and he can just go off and really cause a problem for a tackle like Evan Neal, or a guard that's maybe not quite Josh Azudu's had a tough time against him, and he's never lost to the Giants in the 4 years he's played against us. 64 games he's appeared in 4 years. I'm not sure. He may have missed 1 or 2 games basically in his career, so he's available all the time. It's what you want for that change of pace pass rusher, that to give a Thibodeaux or a Burns a break. Spelling guys, maybe he can play as he's got a bit more size to him than those 2 guys, so maybe he can, in pass rushing situations, can play as a 5-tech defensive end, heads up over the tackle, and allow that kind of 2 guys to come off the edge as well. So that, the old NASCAR D-line kind of system. So yeah, just a really good piece to add to the team in his prime at 27, and is probably a bit more versatile than Aziz, who he's the clear replacement for, who was who was basically a situational pass rusher. Aziz had a great pass rush win rate, but he wasn't the guy you want on the field in rushing situations. So you could put him on 3rd and long. Aziz, situational pass rusher, they're worth 5-6 million a year. Well, you know, a little bit more than 5-6 million a year. You know, we've got ourselves a versatile, solid backup with potential to be, you know, more than just a part-time player.
Kev, I know we've already spoken about this, but we're going to do it again for the wider audience than just sort of me, you, and a couple of others. We're expecting Golston to play next to Dex sometimes as a, you know, as a 3-tech, but is this also a chance where we're going to see Thibodeaux pushed harder than he ever was when Aziz was on the team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was always a case of Thibodeau's place was never under pressure, never under pressure. I mean, I think Golston's a great addition. And it's interesting because Thibodeaux will likely get his 5th-year option picked up. But it's not guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed he's going to get another contract. He has flashed and been solid, but has he been the 5th overall pick that we picked a couple of years ago? Has the production been what we had hoped? Probably not. So maybe it's been a little kick up the arse, like. And but the thing I love about Golston as well, like going back to, I mean, Mayo's absolutely 100% right. He's sort of that tweener in the sense that, like, he can play on obvious passes. Say it's like 3 and 10, 3rd and 10. You know, you stick him next to Dex in the middle with Burns and Thibodeaux going off the edges. I mean, that's frightening. I think he will pick guards in a spin, like, and actually, you know, like he will get a lot of pressures disrupting that middle. But also, like, he can play your traditional 4-3 defensive end as well. Like, he's got that size to him to play against the run. Aziz could never do something like that. But also, you know, he could play as a 3-4 defensive end also. So he's one of those players that I think will, like, be a backup as such. But I think he could play nearly 50 snaps a game, you know, 50% of the snaps a game. I think he will be used all across that defensive line, but also being able to give Thibodeaux a break and Burns a break and stuff like that as well. So would I like to have someone else starting next to Sexy Dexy and base? Yes. But I think he'll play a lot of snaps, and I think he could be quite productive for us. Again, he is that ascending player at 27, sort of hitting his straps now. He's been in the league. He knows what it's about. He knows what the NFC East is about. You know he's going to play a little bit harder those 2 games against Dallas every year. So I think it's one of those, like, sneaky ones that isn't sexy, but I think he will contribute and contribute well.
Does it feel like this is like one of the first times in a few years that maybe we've gone to a divisional rival and picked up someone from there as opposed to it happening to us? Because it always did seem that they would pick up our sort of offshoots and turn them into much better players. You know, you just have to look at, you know, Tyree Phillips went over there, returned to the Giants as a better player, despite the fact he barely played for the Eagles on their practice squad. But we've seen Bradbury go, and we've seen many more. It's nice to see that. And as you said, Kev, one really, really nice thing about this, and it seems to obviously be a theme coming across the board here with free agency this year. He's 27 years old and he's coming off the best season he's had as a pro, and that's a good projection pickup, exactly the same as what we've seen with the Thibodeaux and exactly the same as what we've seen with Holland.
And also, I think it's 6.5 mil per year. I saw someone say, like, overpaying for a backup on X or something like that. X is a cesspool sometimes. But anyway, I think it's a phenomenal. Like, I was looking at it and I was thinking 6.5 mil for what he's going to give us. Like you said, the projection of him, what he's going to give us this season. I think that's great business. Like, I kind of thought he was going to come in a little bit more, to be honest, like closer to the 10. But yeah, I mean, yeah, very happy with it. Very happy with that signing. And, you know, a lot of these signings as well, like, you know, one thing we said last year, what did we not have? We had quite decent starters in a lot of positions. But one thing we didn't have is when starters went off the field and backups came on, we had no depth and we got burned so much. this year, this free agency again hasn't quite, the two safety lads and Golson coming in here, but this is meat and potatoes. You're not going to get many many Adibos and many Hollands. Just meat and potatoes type stuff. We're going to need to get players in who are going to contribute. So when someone steps off the field for 5 snaps, the production doesn't drop massively.
No, not at all. Let's have a chat about a returner then. I think this is quite possibly the biggest shock we've had so far this free agency. Not just because he's returned, but also maybe the value that we've got him at, if you compare it to some of the other players that were going around sort of similar amounts of money. As soon as we saw, was it Josh Palmer go for, I think it was 10 mil a year, you thought, well, I think even Dan Duggan tweeted out, he went, oh, okay, well, if Josh Palmer's getting 10 a year, what the hell is Slayton going to get? And all of a sudden we get him on a 3-year deal worth 36. I think that's cracking business, really, for somebody.
So the Palmer deal was 3 for 36 as well.
Well, there you go. I mean,
Diami Brown was 1 for 10.
Okay, there we go. So it was the Diami Brown one that was 10. But even so, I personally would rather have Slayton over Josh Palmer. I know that Palmer's been better, but I think what we're getting with Slayton and then the familiarity is a phenomenal. I mean, it's a great reward for a player who's kind of got on with his job. If you remember, he took that pay cut a couple of seasons ago and kind of had to prove himself. He's put up numbers despite the fact that we've had poor quarterback play for the last few years. He's a stellar locker room guy. He has players back. He was one of the only people who was really defending Daniel Jones at times where DJ was kind of getting it from all angles. He's coming off the back of winning the Media Good Guy Award as well, so he's obviously respected by the beat writers in there. I think, this is you kind of look at Slayton as being like that Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee style player for the Giants who just oozes exemplariness. Now, Slayton did kind of fall off a little bit after Daniel Jones was benched last season. But I think we can all agree that was a quarterback issue more than a Slayton issue. The MO seemed to be force the ball to neighbours, and if that failed, then screw it, force the ball to neighbours. Competent play from either Wilson or Rodgers or Ward or Sanders. The ball should get spread around a little bit more. Maybe we're not going to force feed neighbours or Wandale and Slayton's going to come into his own. Because I was having a look at some of his stats. He's got 3,897 yards so far for the Giants, receiving yards. That's 18th on the all-time list. And if he gets 800 yards, which is not unheard of, he cracks the top 10. He is very, very close to kind of getting up and up into the sort of higher all-time receiving yards list for the Giants. But also, he has 21 touchdowns, which is 22nd on the list, and he could quite easily start to roll up that list as well. So it just shows that we're rewarding the right players. Now, like we said, we all said that in the offseason that Slayton likely needed to split from the Giants and just kind of take a reset. And maybe he's a glutton for punishment, but he came back. And like we said, it's a decent deal if you compare it to the contract versus production from Josh Palmer or Diami Brown. I mean, Kev, what are your overall thoughts on this? This is a really good move for the Giants, right?
This is a brilliant move for the Giants. And I've been thinking about this, for the last couple of days since he signed. We all thought he's gone, right? We as an organization, the New York Giants, have kind of ruined his rookie seasons and the last 2 years. He could have been so much more productive with better quarterback play and better coaching. So we thought that, he's got to go for his own sort of career, his legacy. But I love the fact that he wants his legacy to be a New York Giant, and he wants to be here for the future to help turn this organization around. Because I think he's a better quarterback than the national thought is of him. It's just he hasn't had great quarterback play. Like he said like earlier on, what was it? He talking about well, how do you feel about maybe Russell Wilson coming in here? And he said, well, selfishly, Russell Wilson throws a really good deep ball. I kind of like that. Do you know what I mean? So like, I just think it needs a change of quarterback. Him as a player can be phenomenal, I think, and to give it that price point, because I thought there's so much there to like. A few drops, we get that. Some players are just going to have a couple of drops, and you just got to deal with it. But the experience he's got, the speed he's got, the elder head in the locker room. Do you know what I mean? Especially at wide receiver, where if he didn't come back, like that wide receiver has no real sort of like guidance or vet in there to sort of help out the young lads. Do you know what I mean? So getting him back at that deal where he could have got 15, 16, I think, like out somewhere else. Because if you think about it, like what was I saying like in the earlier on in the offseason? Like if he goes to somewhere like if the Bengals don't bring back T. Higgins and he goes to the Bengals, he's going to put up serious numbers, like serious numbers. So now you get maybe obviously not Burrow level quarterback play, but you get better quarterback play, better coaching, and better play calls. Neighbors will be double teamed. So Slayton is going to have an opportunity to put up some serious numbers and add to those yards and touchdowns that you just mentioned.
Aaron, does it kind of start to really finish off the writing on the wall for Hyatt by bringing back Slayton? Because he is not shown anything, and by all accounts, it sounds like the brass are getting fed up with him.
It doesn't look good for him. Hyatt was always a very limited route runner. So like Slayton says, he likes a deep ball. You've got to have that deep ball blow the top off the defense threat on offense. The problem the Giants have is we haven't had the quarterback play, whether that's because of the quarterback himself or the line. We're not able to really get that deep ball going. The advantage Slayton has is he has a full route tree, so he can play that position and not just be completely reliant on that deep ball game. It's a great to have the guy back. I think he was be a nice guy on his cap at the press conference today, and that sums him up. And he's once a Giant, always a Giant. Maybe with Slayton, like Eli, only a Giant. You see him becoming an ambassador for the team at the end of his career. He's such a great media guy, personality guy. You wouldn't, maybe Brandon London needs to worry about his job for the local affiliate in the area, because this is a guy you're going to want on TV at the end of it. You make a lot of money in TV at the end of his career. I personally would like to see our number 2 receiver as a better player than what Slayton is. He's solid, but that's why we re-signed him, because Palmer is solid, and maybe you don't get the same locker room guy, the same media guy. But that we could have got Palmer, we could have got Damien Brown. But you're taking a risk, and Slayton's not a risk. He's a team guy. I think, again, we know we haven't seen his full potential because of the quarterback play. Like you say, you put him with Joe Burrow, you put him with Josh Allen, you put him with Patrick Mahomes, and how many yards does he have in his career at this point? 5th round draft pick, what a story to get to where he is. And I hope he stays a Giant for the rest of his career and gets a playoff win, a few more playoff wins before he retires.
But also, it's very hard as well. Like the free agent wide receivers out there, who would have been a better fit for that money? That's kind of way you have to look at it as well. And it's very hard for teams to have a T. Higgins, a Chase on their team, like 2 wide receivers of that sort of caliber. So unless you draft them and hit on the draft twice in a cycle, like it's so difficult. So
I say this year's draft class as well is not the quality it was last year or last 2 years at wide receiver have been. So where do you go and get that Y type receiver? We've got RX in Neighbours. We need Wandale is slot only. You know, and I would like to see someone challenge Wandale for that slot position as well. And there's some players like that in this year's draft. But yeah, where do you get your Y type receiver? And you look at the teams, you know, T. Higgins franchise tag. The Bengals probably didn't want to put the franchise tag on him, but they realized there wasn't really a viable replacement for T. Higgins, you know, so they've got to give Chase a contract. They've got to try and retain their players. But, you know, let's tag Higgins again. At least we get one more year. And Goodwin didn't leave the Bucs. Another great wide receiver that I would love to see as a Giant. But, you know, his team wouldn't let him out of the building effectively. So, you know, there is. So that's why I think there hasn't been loads of movement. And we went, actually, of the guys left, why would we take a risk when we can have Slayton for the same money?
Yeah, and Goodwin as well, his contract at his age doesn't quite have fit the mold that we're trying to do, whereas Slayton very much does as well. Like, so, yeah, like I said, and also bringing in better quarterback play. You said about the line as well. You're 100% right. And I'm not saying he's just a deep ball specialist, but if the line can hold up long enough to be able for him to get down the field, like, you know, he's never going to get those type of opportunities. But I think you'll see a different player when we get the quarterback. When we get the quarterback that we're happy with, I should say, I think you'll see a different receiver in Darius Slayton. Because you are right, Mayo. He can run the complete right tree. He's got it in his bag. He isn't just a one-trick pony. And I think we'll be sitting here next year, you know, seeing Slayton have a very good season and thinking, yeah, that was the right move to bring him back.
I think that's a great comment there. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Kirk Cousins walk into a pub.
Hey, Slayton would be great with as well, with Jameis Winston, you know, because again, he's another guy that's not afraid to sling it. So yeah, there's plenty of guys that can that can get the ball to Slayton down the field. But yeah. But what can he do with a fully functional offense? He's not had, you know, he came in the league with Daniel Jones, right? So I think again, he clearly built up a rapport. There's a famous saying, before DraftKings left the UK, I was heavily into preseason DFS, and that was a really soft market because what you always used to find was the backup connection. So the backup quarterback and the backup wide receiver was a great connection. And anytime the backup quarterback's injured in the regular season, start the backup wide receiver and the backup quarterback in that game, and they'll go off more. And that's what they had. They clearly started work together from day one of training camp. And that's why I think Slayton had some success. That doesn't mean he's limited to only catching the ball from Daniel Jones. You put better play in the thing, and I think we'll see the best season yet from Darius Slayton.
Yeah, I think one thing that's quite key from everything that you guys have been saying is the fact that, as you said, Mayo, about the draft, and then Kev, you were saying about the caliber in free agency. This was very much a down year on wide receivers across the board. And that's not a slight on some of those players who ended up at the top, but it just means that there wasn't any kind of standout. And, you know, you've rightly said, Kev, it's the safe option, but for the Giants, it was the right option. Right, let's talk about some tackles. You know, we got two of them. We might as well get onto those before we talk about the special teams extraordinaire that we've also picked up. And we're going to start off with Stone Forsyth, another beautiful name there. Got to love someone with the first name of Stone. That's an early contender for Dan's list of best names, I think. But Forsyth played for the Gators in Florida from 2016 to 2020, appearing in 40 games primarily at left tackle. He was drafted by the Seahawks in the 6th round and worked his way into the swing tackle role, played both left and right tackle over the years for them. 2024, he started 5 of the first 6 games of the season, but landed on injured reserve in October. He did return late in the season, but was confined to more of a backup role than the starting role that he started with. In his first 2 years in the league, he had only had 67 pass blocking snaps and allowed 7 hurries. But in the last 2 years, with his pass blocking snaps increasing to 610, so almost tenfold, obviously the numbers have gone up in the terms of pressures. He's got 7 sacks, 11 QB hits, and 49 hurries on those 610 pass blocking snaps across the last 2 years. And then if we look at our other tackle there, James Hudson, I think the contract for this one, when it was first announced, was maybe a little bit harsh on Hudson. I think now that the numbers have properly come out, I think we can all appreciate that it's maybe not quite as bad as it looks on paper, because it definitely looks like a little bit of an overpay. But in his he started his time at Michigan and only played in 3 games before transferring to Cincinnati. For the Bearcats, he played only in the 2020 season, but did start all 11 games, allowing only 6 hurries as his only pressures that season. He was drafted in the 4th round by the Browns in 2021 and spent his first 2 years as a versatile backup, appearing at both left and right tackle. There is a theme here between these 2 players. His snap count increased in 2023, and he would start 7 games, including all of the final 5. He continued this into 2024, but suffered a shoulder injury just 4 games in, landed on IR for the season. Aaron, neither of these 2 are likely to push Thomas or Illumina for their starting spots, but on paper, how much of an upgrade does this seem when you look at Hubbard and Thibodeaux?
Yeah, so the first thing that strikes me here is I think this is the Cam Brasillo getting the guys he thinks he can develop in the room, and you know, Stone especially, he is definitely a developmental guy, but I think he's 6'8". He's absolutely massive. His stats of when he's played, and he played quite a few snaps at right tackle against the Giants and didn't look great against us this season. But he's got the intangibles that maybe a Cam Brasillo can unlock. James Hudson is absolutely coming in from to be the swing tackle, and with the money that we're giving him, he has shown on tape when he's been healthy the ability to be that swing tackle, and I think that's where we've seen from Thibodeaux's not the answer at that swing tackle position. Both similar sort of draft capital as each other, and yeah, I think that just shows that we haven't had him develop. And if you've got guys similar draft capital, maybe arguably similar careers, this comes from a coach going, this is the type of guy I want in the locker room, and I think I can polish that gem up to a diamond, and maybe we're not looking for Stone again to become an Andrew Thomas replacement, but if Andrew Thomas goes down like he has done through injury, can you get serviceable play out of the guy for the rest of the game or whatever, the rest of the season until you get it? And I think that's where we are here. We know, need that play. And hell, if you get that play up to a level, can you then fix your right guard spot maybe later down the season when you've got trusted guys by moving Illuminor back into right guard and one of these guys, Hudson, playing right tackle, and that's an option of fixing your line in the future as well. So yeah, we know that Illuminor, we've all penciled him in or penned him in at right tackle, where he was brought in originally to play right guard with that right tackle flexibility. So I'm not wishing the guy back into guard because I hope he stays at tackle and earns tackle money, right? But but let's be real. If we can find getting our best 5 on the field, and if that means Illuminor kicks back in the right guard at some point in the season, then this would be a fantastic signing for the money.
Kev, we've seen over the years players leave the Giants from an offensive line perspective and go on and do better things. We know Carmen Brasillo was good at kind of developing players at the Raiders. Is this the kind of moves that makes you hopeful that maybe we can turn players who haven't worked out for their previous clubs and actually develop someone for once and turn their career around, as opposed to it being the other way for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we all like Priscilla. We all like what he can do. We all like, up until we got injuries last year, we all loved the way the line was actually playing. You know, we actually looked like a serviceable line and slightly above average line. So yeah, I mean, they're 26 and 27, both players. The contracts are like interesting. I mean, like Stone is on a VSB, Veterans Salary Benefit contract, which is basically he gets what 1.3 million, but it only counts against 900K to the cap. And Hudson is a deal. I mean, was it? I just pulled it up here a second ago. You know, he's against the cap 4.1 this year, 6.75 next year, but we save 5 million if we cut him next year. So it gives us that flexibility. If it doesn't work out, we won't be on the hook for too much money if we want to get rid of him. But you know, if they've seen something in these players to come in, you know, talk about intangibles. We talk about, you know, wingspans, heights, and stuff like that for someone like Stone. You know, Hudson could be a player that they could develop. If you're talking about Hudson's, it seems like me. If one of the tackles rolls their ankle, they need to come out for one series or something just to get a bit of tape on it or get a bit of treatment or whatever. You know, I'd feel a lot happier with Hudson going in there for a series, just one sort of series to take over. Would you want him right now starting 17 games? Absolutely not. Of course not. But like, you know, could he come in and give you a series or two during the game if treatment is needed? I think he can. And again, like I said, they're young. Offensive linemen, you know, they play well into their 30s. We all know this. You know, it's not like other positions. You've seen how well, like Kevin Zeitler's been playing. He's 35 now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you know, I'm not saying they're anything like that, but you know, there are players that, you know, could they develop and be something at 28, 29? Why not? You know, like you said, we've seen it happen to our players going somewhere else. Why can't we do it the other way around?
Exactly. And I guess, looking at the time, there's an interesting conversation coming up soon, so I want to try and give us as much time as possible for that. So we'll fire through the next one, probably without a question, and then we'll move on to that one. But you know, we won't take anything away from the actual signing here, because I think it is actually a sneaky good signing for what we need at the moment, and that's Chris Ward. He signed a 2-year contract worth up to $6 million. Now, he played as a linebacker and special teams contributor for North Dakota State during his time there from 2013 to 2017. And then he went undrafted in 2018. The Ravens signed him as an undrafted free agent, and he instantly became a special teams player while working his way into the rotation on defense. He spent 4 years with the Ravens until moving to the Lions in 2022. He then spent a year in Detroit before moving to the Patriots in 2023, and then completed the full circle back to the Ravens for 2024, where he played in every single game, mostly on special teams, but did have 167 snaps on defense for the Ravens. He recorded 19 total tackles, 1 sack, and 1 pass breakup while playing defensively. And then on special teams, he had 11 tackles and a team-leading 382 special teams snaps. So what we're essentially getting there is very much that kind of Matthew Adams, Carter Coughlin kind of linebacker who is going to predominantly play on special teams. But I do think that he is a sneaky upgrade there for a player who can contribute defensively. And if he's getting into a Ravens team like he was last season and being able to put up numbers there, I think we're looking at a relatively good player there. Anything either of you want to add on Chris Ward before we move on?
I get like that Isaiah Simmons special team standout, can get some snaps out of them on defense, kind of replacement role, and yeah, a guy that is a baller really for what he's limited to overall athletically. He's a guy that you want in the locker room. More guys like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think like he's one of those players. He's been a special teams captain, and he's one of those players again that you would feel good about coming in for a few snaps, to be a backup. But again, would you want to play 17 games? No. But can he give you valuable snaps? I believe he can. And good teams have these type of players in the backup positions.
Right. Let's address the elephant. He could even be riding an elephant, couldn't he? For all we know right now. Who knows where he is? Looking dishevelled with a towel over his head on the beach. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. At the moment, the Giants are involved in a waiting game, I think is safe to say, for Aaron Rodgers, who seems to be taking more thoughtful beach walks as he strings along both the Giants and the Steelers. We're now on day 4 of Roger Watch, and it's not just fans that are getting frustrated with the enigma, shall we say. Adam Schefter yesterday was shown on a show getting pretty pissed off with the delayed announcement, saying just pick a side and do it. Like, how hard is it to just choose your roster? It's not that deep. But we know Rodgers is a main character in his own universe, and this is how he's going to want to do it. Now, Russell Wilson seems to be the major other player in this conversation. And for the second year in a row, he will be visiting the Giants facility in East Rutherford to talk about potentially signing. Last season, he went to the Steelers after coming into the building and being told that Daniel Jones was the starter and he would not be the starter. I don't think we've got any concerns about him being told that Tommy DeVito is the starter over him. So I think it should be relatively simple to have the conversation with Russ. And at the end of the day, if that's the direction that you want to go in and you're fed up with the way that Rodgers is handling things, then you don't let Russell Wilson leave the building. Really, you sign him up and go from there. But Aaron, what's your thoughts on the process here from the Giants and how patient they're being, and what do you think is the most likely outcome? Because there is always the plan D, which seems to be Joe Flacco is the rumor there.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly they went hard for Stafford, and that was plan A. And then I think plan B is we need a veteran quarterback capable of starting, but we're drafting someone at number 3 or 1 or 2. Whether it's Shador or Cam Ward would be my preference. I don't know if we'll have the chance to get him. And you have one of these guys be the starter for the start of 2020-25 season, show the rookie how to run a QB room in the NFL, and in the best case scenario, comes in when we've already qualified for the playoffs in week 17 or week 18 and get their first start, right? Like Patrick Mahomes did under Alex Smith. I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. All of the off-field stuff as well. I find him, it's his universe and we all live in it. Because, and anyone that's complaining about, I wish Aaron Rodgers make us in, you're just falling for the trick, right? He is proven he is the man. I think the most Aaron Rodgers thing will be to retire. He's going to get paid from Jets, whoever he plays for this season, the Jets are paying for him. So he doesn't even have to play. He's a competitor. He's a guy that I would like to see play for the Giants. He would be my preferred choice. But we have to have a veteran, and we know that Russell Wilson's visiting the building tomorrow. If we haven't got Aaron Rodgers giving us a confirmation, I don't think you pass on the opportunity of having Wilson run the offense for a year. And worst case scenario, you get yourselves in a Vikings or a Falcons situation, which either would be preferable to where we are. Although our current position is preferable to the Indianapolis Colts, I would rather have our QB room right now than the Indianapolis Colts QB room.
Kev, what we say. I mean, we talk a lot about stuff like this, and I think the frustration with Rodgers does get to us because not only are we kind of waiting on tenterhooks as fans, but also it's content, isn't it? Like when you have someone sign, we get all nice and warm inside and talk about content and talk about projections. And when we're just sitting here going, "Can you please make a goddamn decision?" We're twiddling our thumbs. So where are you on this kind of this journey, shall we say?
The journey's a good line for that as well. I'm with Mayo up until the point where I think Rodgers is the better quarterback. He is the better quarterback. I think he'll be another year away from the injury. I think he would be a good quarterback, and I think he could run whatever offense Thibodeaux wanted him to run. With that being said, we are not in a position right now to go to playoffs or win Super Bowls and stuff like that. So what situation would help us going forward? I actually think, like, financially as well, like, we don't know the numbers. Like, there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, Rodgers wants 40 and 40 mil and Wilson wants 20, 25 or something like that. Like, we don't know. But it would be nice to know which quarterback we've got so we know how much money we're spending. So maybe we can go and get a right guard or a defensive tackle. For me, I think Wilson is better than anything else, right? After Rodgers, Wilson is much better. There is a sizable gap for me. Wilson showed enough for the Steelers last year that he can come in, run the offense, spread the ball around. He won't be scared to dink and dunk and check down only and stuff like that. He'll come in and run the offense properly to give us opportunities to win games. We lost a lot of one-score games last year. And I think having someone like Wilson, he's still like 34 or something like that, 35, he's still able to pick up yards with his legs when needed. I think he would be good enough for a season while a rookie comes in and Mayo hit it in the head. Comes in, sees how a pro works in this league, sit for a year, learn the playbook. You're not thrown to the wolves. And whether that means if Cam goes 1, Shedeur goes 2, and we're stuck at 3, whether that means, we take BPA and we look at the second round, jumping back into the first round for a dart if he falls, or a shock, or, a Milrow, Milrow could sit for a year and develop under Thibodeaux. Thibodeaux would love to work with some of the tools he has. So for me now, I'm at the position where Wilson comes in tomorrow. I think we try and sign him for the year. We don't let him leave. We try and sign him for the year because I think he will give us enough production on the field that will be better than what we've had recently. And that's what we want. We want to be better than we had recently. And I think Shane and Thibodeaux cannot risk letting him leave and us having to run the offense with a Joe Flacco or I can't even think who's left, because even the backups have signed deals today. Like, Mac Jones has gone to 49ers and Rudolph has gone back to the Steelers. And so you are quite left with, bottom of the barrel type quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks. Whereas Wilson, I believe, is the last one that is a starting caliber quarterback in this league. So that's what I would do. Get him in tomorrow, get him signed. We know where we stand. They know where they stand. The players know where they stand. Joe Shane knows where he stands cap-wise to make any more additions in this offseason. And then we can, look to the draft then after free agency and see where we're getting a QB of the future. Because we're not getting a QB of the future in this free agency. We're not doing it. People were talking about Darnold for a small time there and other quarterbacks and stuff. So that's where I am at the moment. I say Wilson tomorrow, keep him. He'll play well enough this year that we won't pick third next year. And a rookie QB can see, because let's face it, he is a bit weird, a bit odd, dangerous, but one thing you say about him, he's produced on the field. He's a Super Bowl winner. Thumbs up. He's a Super Bowl winner, and he's a professional. And he's good in the locker room. He just is a little bit odd, and I'll take a little bit odd for this season.
I think most athletes are, though, aren't they? Most athletes, to a degree, drink their own Kool-Aid. I think is probably the nicest way that I can put it. Rodgers is probably one of those. Russ is also probably one of those. As Aaron was kind of alluding to with his charades there, Jameis Winston is another one who likes to drink his own Kool-Aid, who is still available. James made me almost snort halfway through that little monologue by Kev by saying, A-Rod's getting 40 mil a year from the Jets this year. Greedy sod can have a vet minimum deal. If only it was that simple. But yeah, this one hopefully won't rumble on for much longer, and we'll get an idea. Obviously, the Steelers signed Mason Rudolph back earlier today as their sort of contingency plan in case Rodgers decides to retire. It does. Do you know what? In a way, that does feel like a very Aaron Rodgers thing to do, but another very Aaron Rodgers thing to do would be not end on a sour note. And I feel like he wants to go out on a high, and his ego wouldn't allow him not to do that.
Yeah, I said, I think I put a post on X, and the most Aaron Rodgers thing to do would be if the Giants and the Steelers were playing in the Hall of Fame game, the opening preseason game, and both teams are on the field, and Aaron Rodgers' music hits, and he comes running out in the team jersey that he's going to play for, and you don't know until that point. And I said, and also that would also mean that the league will have fixed the mistake of not putting Eli in the Hall of Fame, because if you're in the Hall of Fame game, one of your players is going in. So that's that would be the most Aaron Rodgers thing, I think.
Do you know what? Right, I saw that tweet and I was thinking, right, that was so funny, and it's such an Aaron Rodgers thing to do. Like, and it got me thinking, like, I'm surprised he didn't do, like the high school, college commitments where they have the hats on the table, and he goes to pick up. Oh no, this one, he goes to pick up the hats and stuff. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't done something like that.
I think if you look at the way Shane has structured some of these free agency deals, you mentioned that typically what you see in a free agency deal is a first year with a, whatever it is, and then it kind of escalates through the deal. What we're seeing is a lot of these deals have got a big second year, which is when Daniel Jones' dead cap hit drops off. So we've got a bit more cash to spend, but also a rookie contract, QB contract, cost-controlled contract. So I think all the signs are that the real plan is that rookie QB under contract. I can't see us leaving the first round without a QB, whether that is at 3, at 1, trading back into the round for Jackson Dart, who I'm a big fan of. And I think the future QB of the New York Giants is coming out of this draft.
100%. Well, that's it. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for you this evening and for this week. Thank you for obviously sticking with us after our 3-week hiatus. The numbers that we got on Monday's episode were very humbling, considering we had been away. And it's nice to know that we're not forgotten about sometimes. We do disappear like that. But obviously, we've had over 100 people watching this one as well. So much appreciated to everybody who's getting involved in the comments and sticking with us. There's plenty of content to come. And we will be back next week to cover any other deals that kind of go through over the next few days. And we get to start talking prospects, Kev. It is time to start looking at the offensive linemen and how that is going to look. So we will have Kev and Shane's top 5s offensive line next week. Anything you want to add before we go, Kev?
No, I mean, this has been brilliant, this episode. I want to thank Mel for coming on. A great addition. I mean, me and you would have been awesome anyway, but this is just extra awesomeness for having Aaron on, add that little bit extra. I really enjoyed tonight, but also like next week's pod, we'll have a QB. We'll know who the QB is, and we can kind of work through our depth chart. We can kind of work through our 2 deep and have a look and see, who we've got, who the additions are, how we think we'll do, and then get on to prospects. Because there's one thing about the roster at the moment. If you look at the roster at the moment, if we can solidify the QB and the right guard, we could be going into the draft without an obvious need, which is good in the sense I'm saying, like, we shouldn't be drafting for need then. Then we can just take good players, take the best player available. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of weeks to really sort of get through the last bit of free agency and then get onto the draft stuff, because it's going to be a good draft, I think.
Indeed. Aaron, thanks for joining us tonight. Anything you want to add before we go?
No, just keep up the coverage for the draft. I'm excited for it. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon through the various channels, probably in the chat soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on. Obviously, that you kind of spurned off the comment from Monday night, and I think we had a really, really good conversation to begin with. And obviously, anybody who has joined late or maybe missed that conversation, just make sure you go back and check that out after we finish here, because it's well worth listening to, and a really good insight into not just what happens with Evan Neal, but also the nuances of the offensive line. Before I wrap up and do my usual spiel, James has said, are you guys planning another draft night? Yes, in some capacity, whether that is like last year, where we ended up doing it in one room with all of us on screen, or whether it ends up much like you see here with us on our own cameras in our own houses, screaming in rooms that are hopefully not disrupting loved ones. Something will happen draft night from us. We will be live, and even if the Giants have picked 1, that doesn't mean we stop at pick 2. We'll go all the way through to the end of the first round, and depending on how we feel, we might even do day 2 as well. There have been rumblings about us doing day 2 as well, with the second round and third round, as long as we don't trade all of our picks away for that day. Luckily, we should be okay now with that comp pick. So maybe you'll just have to stick around for 5 hours for us to see who pick 99 ends up being. But we will see. As always, remember to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. It really does mean a lot. You can hit the bell to be notified of when we are live. You can check out all our socials in the description down below. My thanks, as ever, go to Kev and to Aaron for joining me this evening. To the viewers and listeners for all of their comments, we are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.